Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another episode of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you fine folks for our first installment of the Global Power Rankings of Split 3 action. And maybe the toughest one we'll do, and a lot of that is, of course, just the incredibly small body of work for a lot of the squads on this list and the massive disparity, which we have talked about ad nauseum, of the level of competition right now in these matchups.
There's been times where we've been able to do this list and, all the way down to 15, 17, heck, even all the way down to 20 in the honorable mentions. You're excited. You feel that there are chances, possibilities that they can make these upsets. You can have excitement from these teams. A little bit different right now with this general kind of feeling around the world scene and what you have and the dominance that is being showcased right now in the LCK and the LPL compared to the scheduling, the matchups, and then the performances that you have seen in the LTA and the LEC. Never mind some of the surprises that you are seeing, in the LCP right now to kick things off in this Split 3. Very interesting mix amongst this global top 20 to dive into here in this first iteration for Split 3.
And listen, we are looking specifically at Split 3, trying not to include too much from previous splits, but obviously we were so desperate for teams, we had to put MCoy and G2 on this list, even though they haven't made a debut yet, and even throwing in Nongshim in that 20 spot, who have yet to win in Split 3. You're saying, how's a winless team gonna be on here at all? Well, they almost got a win against Hanwha Life. They probably should have, except they did the old flip the game when you're up 6k plus, which was a little bit of a mystery. But really, these bottom three just speak to how underwhelming a start it has been to this split.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best way to paint this picture at the very bottom when you do have the inclusion of both G2 and Koi without having their matches come through yet and what we want to see and everything else. And then as well, going down to Nongshim with that record. And, yes, you do get maybe a half point for some of these results in the series against Hanwha Life, but absolutely you're losing almost all of them with that poor decision making, with that rush for Baron, with that rush for Nexus, and it just not working out whatsoever. These are our teams, again, that as much as we want this list to be representative of only Split 3, because of where, just what Split 3 has been in this beginning, you have to include a little bit of some teams that are bringing in some of that legacy expectation from Split 2.
And a squad that has that legacy expectation but has been floundering it a little bit is Gen.G in that 17 spot. And again, they've lost to top eSports, BLG, Anyone's Legend, the top of the table LPL teams. Have had some close games and series losses, especially that BLG one. And really, Zhaozhou has looked great as the new top laner. Wink has looked like an improvement. Pays is still a 1v9 machine. Really, Scout's performance has just been egregious going back to Split 2 at this point.
And this is the question that I'm feeling really about Gen.G into this split, because you've outlined a lot of the things that are the positives, are the reasons why you could believe and think that this team is going to build and acquire some traction within the LPL to climb up the ladder and the list. Scout is the thing that is holding it back right now. And the question is whether you believe that this downturn in his performance, his capabilities is the truth, is what you are going to see for the rest of this year, or do you see that rebound? Do you know that this is Split 3? Worlds is on the line. Getting one of those spots is a big incentive, and especially for a veteran and accomplished player like Scout. So that's going to be my interesting angle heading into this split for Gen.G. I know there also are some changes behind the scenes, Clear Love coming into the team and everything else, but I still think that the biggest thing for me is going to be whether you see Scout able to find that form, able to step up and be that type of figure for this team to push them to that next tier.
And he is a guy who can wait till the absolute last possible elimination series of the year before we see an MVP level out of him. So, he gets a little bit of runway, but it's been a long time that he's been underwhelming. Couple LCK squads ahead, and this is where it gets, you really see the form happening, because D+, okay, they're 3-1 to start Split 3, whereas KT is 1-3, but we're on the opposite ends of the winner and losers bracket, so D+ is beaten. The DN freaks and DRXs of the world, and KT is losing a competitive 0-2 to Gen.G, which sounds absurd to say, but they were in the driver's seat in both of those losses against Gen.G.
It's wild. I don't think there ever has been a more different 1-3 and 3-1 in the same period of time. It is actually crazy because yes, D plus Kia 3-1, pretty good, pretty solid here, but it is against that lower level of competition, and such a lower level of competition in the LCK specifically that it's hard to generate that movement, generate this upward climb for this team that we want to see succeed and really showcase and impress us against this lower level in the LCK. And on the other side, you have KT, who we know are going up against the very toughest, the very strongest teams in the LCK, and to showcase that you are, kind of able to hang up there. You're not one of these squads that is floundering down below is an improvement, I think, for KT, and still is maybe beating out some of the expectations for just how outmatched people expected them to be, hanging out around with Hanwha Life, with Gen.G, with T1. But we have seen a KT that maybe can continue to improve, can go back, keep working on things, and eventually take down one of these titans.
And going a step further, I know you're always going to value wins above losses on any ranking like this, but can you not compare a competitive 0-2 loss to Gen.G to a 2-0 against SK Gaming or Dignitas for squads like Fnatic and Cloud9? I feel like we're at a point where you value them at a similar level.
It's always been one of these things, again, where it is that evaluation around the world and between regions. What is the truth of as far as the strength and power that comes through? And that'll always change based on the individual, based on the meta, the things that are going on. But I think right now, the biggest thing that is pushing it and pushing the gap of it is, as we talked yesterday, really the scheduling, the formatting of a lot of these things going on in the LEC and the LTA in comparison to the LPL, LCK. Throw even the LCP into that mix right now. And I think that's where you see a lot of these things and where you're having to have this conversation about evaluating the win total, win point, and whatever for squads like KT, like DK.
And again, it's going to be a while. There's only one or two teams that can be a kind of definitive win for these LEC and LTA North squads when they're playing one of the top teams in the table. These whales are not a secret anymore in the LCP. We're always talking about the Flying Oysters, but how about another 2-0 start and the whales doing it against GAM, who obviously also went to MSI, and the oldly rebranded PSG Talon with Maple in the lineup. Stand perfect against those two, easily drops them onto this list.
One of the most impressive starts to Split 3 that we have been able to track so far has been the Whales, and I think this is a great one because if you weren't paying attention to the LCP, this might catch you off guard, but if you've been following it around in any sort of capacity over this year, no surprise to see the Whales make a charge like this and show up at this type of moment because they have been so close. They've been at that forefront. They have been one of these teams that can push the top end of the LCP. So very excited to throw them onto this list. Again, it's one of those things that is that clear indication, usually a lot of the times for me, that we are gearing up towards that big final event of the year with Worlds when you start to throw in and start to be able to see some of these LCP teams enter this list.
Yeah, and I think Wales were the bigger favorites in playoffs last year over somebody like GAM, who ended up kind of going on a run all the way to finals. So yeah, definitely not a surprise there. Last guy on this list, we're talking Karmine Corp, who again, similar to Fnatic, but they definitely had a harder schedule in Na'Vi, and at least Giant X, the squad who took a game off them, are a perennial playoff team and with the potential to go higher. So slightly harder schedule than Fnatic, and they looked a bit more dominant in their wins, puts them at 11.
I saw a pretty nasty Nico ultimate come through. Maybe that's some of the Niski coaching on the sidelines coming in for Karmine Corp.
Just ignore the first 30 minutes of the game. Just get the game-winning engage.
Yeah, that's how it's all about. But I think with Karmine Corp, it could have been cleaner. It could have been more impressive. But at the end of the day, the results are what you wanted to see from them, what you need to be building upon in this split. And I think it's a little bit different than, some of the expectation might have been, a couple of weeks ago type of thing. But seeing how things went at MSI, there is now going to be that additional pressure, rightfully or wrong in this sense for Karmine Corp, they're going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to settle into it and tackle it as one of these top teams from the LEC.
I'm ready to dub the LPL version of KT Rolster. I'm going to throw it into Weibo Gaming because we've got a little more consistency out of a squad like IG. But Weibo, I say that because, well, their losses have been to BLG, IG, and Top Esports. Again, the very top contenders in the LPL. And on any given day, they could beat the top team and they could lose to a bottom tier team. But luckily, they're not playing bottom tier teams right now.
I feel like that's almost just Weibo in general over the last couple of years, not necessarily even throwing in the KT association, but you absolutely can right now with, as you laid out, the type of scheduling, the matches, the strength of it that you've gone through as Weibo, and for the most part, been able to keep above water throughout these rough seas. That is that early schedule for them. Still, I think some inconsistency within them that makes me hesitate about wanting to throw them any higher in this list at this point until we again see a little bit more of a runway, a little bit more of a track room and record to go off of for this Weibo team. But even ahead of them, you throw IG, and I think that there's only the slimmest of margins of consistency above them I think you could give that IG team. But at the very least, the answer that you've been able to see so far in split 3 for IG is Rookie is aware of the time of year it is and what performances are necessary to push IG into the spot of one of these world qualification teams.
Yeah, it's definitely been a resurgent start for Rookie, and we got the head-to-head against Anyone's Legend today, which is why IG kind of jumps ahead of them. And we've been seeing the Yanara pop up all over the place, and of course, it's Gala, who's the first guy to net a pentakill on the new champion, and doesn't, not even like 1 pixel of a smirk on this guy as he gets a penta.
Oh man, you got to show a little bit of energy, a little bit of emotion when you're picking up something like that, but also one of the best out there doing it, picking up the champion and getting that first pentakill for that. Love to see that. I think that really, the matchup against IG was great when you're talking about for the side of IG into Anyone's Legend. But really, it's one of those ones where I'm not still, again, sounding the alarm bells. You're hitting the panic button for Anyone's Legend at this point. I think they've still got quite a bit of breathing room in that sense. But again, I caution because things do go at an absolute breakneck speed in the LPL. So yes, you do got some breathing room, but that breathing room is going to expire relatively fast because of the speed of the LPL.
Yeah, and again, despite that head-to-head loss to Weibo earlier in the week, still have AL higher because of what we've seen against some of the other top-tier LPL squads, even in the losses. And yes, maybe we're taking a little bit of what we've seen internationally and last split. It's hard to completely ignore it, but yeah, there's still plenty of time for a bounce back for AL. You see sandwiched between all that LPL action. FlyQuest in at the 9th spot again, 2-0. Dominant fashion, like it don't even look like they're in the same league as some of these matchups in the first couple of weeks, but can they really get higher than like 9 throughout this entire split unless they're smashing Cloud9?
One of these FlyQuest is absolutely kind of an anomaly on this list in the sense that they do carry over some of that, pedigree, some of that prestige from what they've already accomplished this year and extending back to the World Championship last year with mostly the same roster here. But you've added in Gakos into this top side. I think that's going to be one of the things that you can examine throughout this split is his involvement, his development and whatever, and does that equal out to a 6-man roster in a type of top lane swapping situation where you can have benefits, or is it simply just for the future type of thing? But this is a FlyQuest team that has been so good and accomplished so far that if you just go off of the LTA and the LTA power of that schedule, it's impossible to throw them into this type of position, and it would feel wrong to deny them one of these spots when we have seen through Worlds last year, MSI here, that they are one of these teams that can stand up, can challenge, can push these top tier teams that are within the top 10 of our global power rankings.
And a squad that can push them even further is CFO. The Flying Oysters have had the same schedule that we talked about with Team Wales against PSG and GAM, and really they just did it in more dominant fashion. It's the same five, of course, coming back. We've seen these guys on the international stage. If they have a similarly dominant run, I think there's going to be even more respect put on them during Split 3, and you might see these guys hovering around top 5. I don't know.
It could, crazier things have happened than seeing the Oysters jump into the top 5 here in the global power rankings. I think this is one of those times where it's like you've bought something and you kept that brand new sticker on it for so long that you still think it's a new item. The Oysters aren't new. Their dominance, their excellency is not new. You got to take that new sticker off here. But with taking that new sticker off comes the expectations is going to be something I'm looking at with the Oysters at this point, with throughout this split and heading towards that international event. They're absolutely, and again, there shouldn't have been an excuse this past MSI or even first stand to really overlook the Oysters or underestimate them in any sense. They're better not be any squads at Worlds underestimating the LCP or the Oysters as a top representative in that regard for what you're going to have. So I think that expectation and knowing that people expect you to be that type of challenge is going to be that next level up for the Oysters to go through.
The next level up on this new board that we got is the dramatic reveal of the top 5, which you could probably put together which squads are there, but it's Hanwha sitting just outside that VIP or the worst seating coming in, and listen, they've still been pretty dominant. I know a little messy against Nongshim, but I think they've still clearly been a distant third best team in the LCK so far.
The guy in the club, he's keeping track of how many people are in there, and he's going, oh, maybe they've got too many people here for fire safety. I gotta step out of here. He's got one line in, 1 foot in, one on the other side. Can't decide whether you want to.
It's not even all the Hanwha members, you know. Maybe they're like, Zeus, you're gonna have to wait a minute. Yeah, Viper, you can come on in.
The capacity for the top 5 running into some issues here in Hanwha Life, feeling it on that border, on that bubble line in this one, still looking to get an impressive result within this LCK Split 3. And I think, again, of course, that only can come against a squad like a Gen.G, like a T1. So still waiting for those opportunities for them once again, but still undeniably one of the top teams in the world. And again, if they can find that level of form that we saw them through first stand, going to be a problem in the LCK Split 3.
We also got the head-to-head of BLG versus Top Esports this week that BLG came away. You know, these squads are a combined 11-1 so far on the split. Obviously, no real concerns even with that loss because TES bounced right back against anyone's legend. But Jackie Love's been cooking up quite a bit for Top Esports, and we're still in the honeymoon phase of BLG Shadow, and it remains to be seen if we stay there. But so far, so good.
So far, so good. So that's, again, the only runway room that you're able to really evaluate this one on for BLG. So you get the double thumbs up here early. And as well, Top Esports, again, getting a good bounce back against that anyone's legend squad that we want to see at the top of the LPL. So very much so impressed, happy with both of these teams being the forerunners for the LPL. They're not going to be happy, though, looking up above and seeing those two titanic LCK squads in T1 and Gen.G up at the very top.
Yeah, and that is quite a mountain to have to climb, whether you're LPL or Hanwha Life. Obviously, T1 is the only LCK squad yet to lose in Split 3. They not only ended the Gen.G perfect run, but who knows, maybe they said, we're going to start a little one of our own going here. Obviously, 18-0 is a long ways away, and it's not even 18 because it's a different format. So we don't care about that. But what we do care about is not only did T1 take down Gen.G, but they recently took down Hanwha, and let's face it, they kind of smashed Hanwha. It was looking like that 3-0 in playoffs that we got last split.
Almost even more convincing than that playoff series is that most recent one that we had in the LCK between those two. You can go any way you want with this one, and I think actually, given that T1 did get the upset against Gen.G, you know, maybe not showing my T1 fandom bias here, but I think there is an avenue that you can talk about T1 usurping Gen.G at this point, depending on how much of that evaluation is going strictly off of this split and how much of it is carrying over. And I think, you know, again, as much as you don't want it to, it frankly should carry over for a squad like Gen.G due to just the outlier of how unbelievably impressive and dominant that split 2 was and how they were able to keep it going through. So I think that does carry over a little bit. And I think that, for me personally, will keep Gen.G in that top type of spot. But I absolutely am very hungry and have my eyes set on that top spot as a T1 fan, seeing the way that they have been able to respond and perform to start out this split.
Yeah, and we are obviously doing that hard cut for split 3. And I mean, you don't have to wait long. It's the next matchup in the LCK is T1 Gen.G throwing down again. So if Gen.G wins, this probably flips back the other way. But if you're any of the LPL squads, if T1 and Gen.G keep pushing themselves like this, how do either of these two get knocked out at the top 2?
It's the worst case scenario for the LPL to see both of these titans push each other to become better and better, knowing that lagging behind is that Hanwha Life squad that is also trying to improve themselves, and whatever else can emerge from the shadows of the LCK. Is it going to be an improved KT, D plus Q, whatever? Seeing this region perform like this and knowing that, again, even looking away from Hanwha Life and everyone else, that those two at the top are going to be able to test themselves, sharpen themselves against one another in this formatting so frequently, very much so would be a problem when I'm talking from the perspective of other regions.
Absolutely stacked at the top in the LCK and the LPL, and they're playing against each other in rapid fire day in, day out, which is great to see. But I will say, maybe these low expectations for the West matching up is actually where we're at the best. Because when there is expectation, oh, they should definitely make quarterfinals, that's when we disappoint. If nobody's expecting anything, well, maybe we can sneak a little upset in.
And I think I can buy into that, but I think a lot of that is going to skip a squad like FlyQuest at this point, unfortunately. No matter what you're going to learn from the LTA split, or looking over in the LEC, pick whatever squad you want. I think what FlyQuest has proven with the past World Championship, with their matches at MSI, at the very least, that there will be that expectation that you should be able to push. You should be meeting, at the minimum, silver scrapes with some of these top tier teams, and I don't think that changes regardless of what you see from FlyQuest this split.
At the very least, expectations for other squads are definitely going to be changing as we progress through split 3 action. But that is it today